You want to call us to order?
We are recording.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the, hold on a second. This is Wolfia.
Nope.
Oh, it is.
It's SVFR.
I've been so many meetings, I can't even keep it. So I'd like to call the Thursday, June 11th meeting of the SVFR Fire Board together to discuss budget.
Cool. Would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. I don't have a flag, but there we go.
There we go. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
Of
of the
the
United States of America,
United States of America,
To the republic,
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Amen.
I'm looking for.
Now Ned always tries to impress us with his gym set in the background.
Yeah.
I told him it's just a backdrop.
Great coat rack you got.
And I'm looking for.
I've got the agenda if you want me to.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's a very short agenda, so that's easy. Holly, can you do a roll call?
Absolutely. Director Green,
Present.
Director Hickson,
Here.
Director Burns,
Here.
Director Polisi,
here,
Director Spade.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. This is a public hearing, so we're opening it up for public comments. We have one citizen who is present. Would citizen Rick Yesney like to make a comment?
No, I'm just here to listen tonight. Thanks.
Okay. Then we will close the public hearing. The one action item we have is it's going to be to approve the resolution for the budget. You'll see in your packet on page, I want to go to page 3. So you're looking at the right-hand number, not the left-hand number. It's the right-hand number, page 3. Should say Siuslaw Valley Fire Rescue Revenue and Expenditure Summary right there in the middle. So that third column from the right, it says approved 2020-2021. That's the budget that was approved by the SVFR Budget Committee. We are proposing a slight change. And you can see the highlighted in yellow are the changes, and that's in the proposed column. And there's a more breakdown, there's a better breakdown, or more detailed breakdown on page 13. And I'll walk you through that in a second, but we say on page 3 here for the moment. So what we did, we dropped materials and services from a little over 974,000 to just a little over 900,000, and that was due to a change in the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority budget. And the reason we proposed lowering that is that the Western Lane Ambulance District Budget Committee approved a lower budget for Welfia than the SVFR Budget Committee did. And you remember that both districts split the cost of Welfia, 51% for Western Lane and 49% for SVFR. And those costs are assigned to materials and services. So with 2 different budgets approved for the authority, we had the Welfia board meet, and they came up with a compromised Welfia budget. And the primary change was we cut out the fire ops chief position, and that was with the understanding things are going fantastic with Matt, our chief house, assuming operations responsibilities for both agencies. So we really don't think we need to fill that position. I think we still would like to do a formal review of that, maybe in July timeframe, but I think it's working great, and I don't see that we have to replace that fire ops chief position. So with that resulted in a lower budget than the current year, which is nice, and you see that in the proposed column. We're hoping that this change will be acceptable to both districts. Has not been voted on by Western Lane Ambulance District board members yet. That's next week. And then we moved, so we dropped materials and services and moved those funds into contingency. So materials and services went down, contingency went up. So now if you go to page 13, we can look at a little bit more detail. So on page 13, line 2, we deleted the fire ops chief. We also had it listed as a training chief. We were going to go either way. If we were thinking about doing one training chief for both districts, but then when we were going to replace the ops chief, we put the funds there, but we've deleted that. We also took away 2.5% cost of living allowance for myself on line 1 and Holly on line 6. Thinking being that Holly and I are eligible for step raises. And then for everyone else, we kept in a 2.5% COLA. But it's important to remember, even though you're seeing some benefit changes, it's still, the benefit package still needs to be approved. And these are only estimates that we put in there so we could get a budget, so we can get something approved going forward. Welfia employee benefit changes, of course, that will be up to the Welfia board. A lot of different options they could do. They could match what been given to SVFR union after negotiations. They could be completely different. I know there's been some talk from the Western Lane board that the Welfia employees should receive what's negotiated for the Western Lane union employees. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But again, that needs to be decided by the Welfia board and then the rest of the boards. Last year on benefits, the decision was made that Matt and Holly would remain with their Western Lane Ambulance District benefit packages that they had. And then everyone else were SVFR employees and they would remain with the SVFR benefit package. That was supposed to be discussed in 2020, and so here we are. I don't think we need to discuss it tonight. Again, that's a Welfia board decision. So at some point, we'll have to have that discussion. So those are the only changes in the budget that was approved by the SVFR Budget Committee. And with all that said, and hopefully I didn't confuse anybody, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. And if there aren't any questions, then we're asking the board to approve the resolution, which you'll find on page 2.
So Chief, it's Sam Spade here. I got a question.
Absolutely.
If you have a review of Matt House's job and how he's doing wearing 2 hats in July, and you find that it's too much for one person to deal with, what contingency do you have in the budget for paying somebody if you hired somebody between now and the end of this fiscal year?
We take it back out of contingency, and then those funds there. So we put it into contingency. We would go to the board and say, okay, we need to hire somebody. It would come out of contingency.
Okay.
So,
Ned, I have a couple of questions for Mike.
Sure.
Mike, I want to piggyback on what Director Spade said. And I'm not picking on Matt or anything, but you said, I mean, we're in the month of June.
Yep.
And you said you're going to review it and everything's working out fine.
Yes.
Why would you review it in 30 days, less than 30 days?
Well, that was the promise we made to the boards. I don't think anything is going to
Okay.
change between now and then.
Well, I don't either. And
Yeah.
it's almost like it gave me the impression that if everything's working out fine, I'm not supporting the reinventing the will, but if everything is working out okay, what's going to change in the next 18 days?
I think it's just a matter, we haven't discussed it with the Western Lane Ambulance District Board. They may feel differently.
Okay.
They may want to have their own ops chief, and I think some of them do. But I
Okay.
think that's a decision we'd have to make.
Okay. And then the other question is the Wilfia budget, that is going to be based on what the fire department budget is approved and what the ambulance budget is approved, correct?
Yeah, they have, yeah, since they share that,
Right.
both have to approve.
So
funds.
that to me, the Welfia budget has to come out last.
Yeah, you raised a great question. Some people have said, why don't we do the Welfare budget first? I don't know.
And I understand that, but then I think, okay, do the Welfia budget first, and then Sisla Valley Fire or the ambulance district trashes it, then you got to come right back around again.
Yes. So essentially what we have done is well, yeah, how many times do you have to go back and forth? So maybe I think if we would have had the Welfare board meet and approve a budget, and then they could go back to their boards and say, okay, we've approved that. That may have been the better way to do it. We're thinking that we would get two different budgets for Welfare. These are a little strange times we're in with labor negotiations and budget prep so late. But no, you're absolutely correct.
So I don't know if anybody ever caught it. To me, the Welfia is like pardon the pun, is a shared department of the two boards.
Yes.
Well, I mean, in my mind, the Welfia budget is probably one of the most specific knowns that we have in terms of our budgeting. I mean, it's, there's 5 people, they make this much money. This is what we put aside for that. To me, it seems it should be the most simple budget. I think the point of contention is coming from Western Lane's reconsideration of what their percentage should be in terms of supporting that.
And labor negotiations.
Yeah. So I know that we've talked about this before in terms of looking at revamping what that percentage share is. I don't know if changing that would make Western Lane Ambulance feel more amenable to approving the budget. If, say, we flip-flopped it and Sisla Valley was 51 and they were 49, I don't know.
That is to be determined.
Or 50-50.
Yeah. So we did the 5149 because all the admin space is over here at the fire department.
Right.
So it was just, and 5149 was just the smallest way we could divide it. I mean, you could go, 50 and a half and 49 and a half. Or I think, and last week or a couple weeks ago, I think we had a board member say maybe Western Lane should pay more. So, I mean, I think that has to be decided by the board.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, Ron, you've brought that.
I want to.
I was to say, Ron Green, I know, Ron, you've brought that up before in terms of taking a look at that split again to see if it's fair or whether it needs to change. I'm just trying to think of Western Lane's point of view on this and how we can make them more likely to approve whatever it is that they sit down to talk about next week. And I don't know, changing that percentage, it would be, the sugar on the icing of the cake that they would need. I just want the board to talk about this and what do we feel about that percentage?
Well, Ned, excuse me, as I mentioned last week, I would support the idea of reviewing that percentage, but I think it needs to be based on some formula of some cost accounting based on what's actually being allocated and what's being spent. And I'm not in the chief's shoes, but it feels like that perhaps the amount of time that's invested by the administrative employees of Welfia is being weighed a little more towards Western Lane Ambulance than it is to the fire district. So my only response would be is if Western Lane suggests that we should look at that, I would say great, but let's do some actual documentation to support what it should be, not just pick numbers out of thin air.
Right, and be prepared that it may actually go up.
Right. Right.
It,
Um,
Ned?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of things I want to bring up as far as getting back to my original question as far as Chief House. To me, Chief Schick, if Matt is doing the job, let him do the job. And I mean, Chief House is looking on the screen, and I thought he's doing fabulous. Unless you're unhappy, keep him there.
Absolutely, that would be my recommendation.
Okay, and that's on that aspect. I'm totally for it. Just unless there's an issue, don't create one. As far as the rollover, as far as the percentages, Ned, what I found experienced years ago is how much time does Chief Schick, Chief House, Dina, and Holly, who's being paid by Wilfia, spends either on Western Lane Ambulance or on Sisla Valley Fire. And the city one time took a month-long survey, and it turned out that police department, the city manager spent 35% of his time on that, so much hours on this, and those departments paid those percentages. So I would say to Chief Schick, Dina, Holly, and Matt, who's being paid by Will, how much time are they spending on the fire department or on the ambulance district? And that percentage would, give it 1 month. How much time do you kind of keep track out of your day?
It would certainly be a jumping off point for that conversation.
Yeah. That study is going to take some time though, because there's got to be some peaks and valleys throughout the course of the year. Call volume.
Exactly, and that's why every year it came back through the budget meeting about how many, this year I spent 60% more on this than that. The next year it kind of was changed to based on, sometimes back then it was labor negotiations, sometimes it was, but it changed every year.
Mhm.
So Ned, tonight, does this board need to kind of prepare any contingency in the event Western Lane's board doesn't approve their board, which includes their budget, which includes their share of the Welfia budget? Because I'm thinking, this is a very clear how the staff have laid this out. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this budget. And I don't know what we can control at this very moment in time about Western Lane does or doesn't do. I think this seems to be fair and appropriate.
Yeah.
It is spelled out very clearly in the agreement. If there is a disagreement, it's up to the Welfia board. If they can't agree, then it goes to each board together. And then if we still don't have an agreement, then it goes to mediation. I'd hate for us to get to that point, and I don't think it will. And there's still so many unknowns with labor negotiations. I think these numbers are going to change. Absolutely, I hope the Western Lane board will approve this, and I think they will, since the Welfia board. But yeah, we do have a couple extra steps if they don't.
Chief, Sam Spade here. That's a concern I have, is that we're creating this budget, but yet still we don't have any negotiated labor issues solved. And how is that going to impact our budget? Are we spinning our wheels here, or what comes first, the horse or the carriage?
Now, we propose budgets that we feel are going to be very close to the final negotiated union contracts. Of course, we don't know for sure. The board can modify a budget by 10% without a public hearing. I don't think it's going to be much more than that. Again, we are bound by our budget. We have only so much revenue and funds available, so it's not going to change much. So I think we're okay going forward with even with.
So
labor.
what you're saying is that there's so much money in the pot, and it depends on negotiations how we divvy it up.
Right. So yeah, if personnel services increase drastically, and that's not going to happen, but if they did, then we probably have to cut capital or some other areas, and the board would have to approve that.
Okay.
I mean, the two,
Chief?
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Quickly, are we still using ADP for payroll and time tracking?
Yes.
So a question, can the Wilfia employees just document on there in code? I know it's a pain in the rear end to do, but each day when you fill out your timesheet, code in how many hours were Wilfia and how many hours were SVFR. Would that help any in coming up with the balance as to how many true hours are being spent?
You know, it wouldn't be that difficult. Holly is pretty much 100% Western Lane. Mary's
Okay.
pretty much 100%. I mean, they share, they back each other up as needed. Mary's SVFR. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tina.
Well, okay, let me jump in because that's the way we set it up in the beginning. But I had Holly doing Western Lane accounts payable and Mary doing Sayusa Valley accounts payable so they could learn the process. Once they learned it and learned it well, we passed that function on to Laura, to where Holly and Mary were freed up to work on a little bit more complicated things. I've got Mary working on like human resources issues, and she splits her time between Western Lane and Sayusa Valley. Holly is
Okay.
more interested in financials, so she's working on Western Lane financials and Sayusa Valley's financials. So it's really really evened out.
So it's not
Okay.
going to be as easy as I'd hope, but yeah, no, we could certainly do that. Just keep a log of when you're working. Matt's a little bit, well, I don't know if it'd be easier for you, Matt. I mean, you spend the day here and then spend down at
Yeah.
Lane. So.
My guess is it's going to work out to be about 49% to 51%.
I can guarantee it.
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, even when I use it, like Chief's workload is very concentric right now with the union negotiations to Western Lane side. You know, in operations, my workload has been really onto the fire side, fixing, adapting, and getting more control over to the fire side versus the Western Lane side. So there really is a balance between all the admin and what we're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, Chairman, President, I should say, I'm going to make a motion to approve budget resolution number 2020-03.
Spade was
I se-
second.
Okay. Who was that? Who was second?
Sam and Alan both.
Mr. Polisi.
Yes, I agree.
All right. We have a motion. Can I get a roll call vote on that?
Director Green,
Yes.
Director Hickson,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Polisi,
Yes.
Director Spade.
Yes.
That is all our business.
Director Yesney.
Good.
He
Hey,
left.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, yeah, never mind. I'll catch you later about it. All right, if there's no other business, I believe that was it.
That is
Great.
it.
Okay, gotta get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved
And-
by Spade.
All right, Sam.
Thank,
All right, that being said, we'll call an end. The meeting is adjourned for Sayusa Valley Fire, June, golly, I can't keep track of the date, June 11th, 2020.
good night, folks.
25th.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Good night.